You ever wonder why it seems more and more challenging to wake up next to that person in that relationship where your needs are unmet, although you've been journaling and doing your affirmations on a daily basis? You ever wonder why, when it's time to pay your bills or an unexpected expense comes up, you feel tons of anxiety, although you enjoy your occasional glass of wine, a cocktail, a night out with the girls? I'll tell you why. It's because chronic stress is not always a result of our external circumstances. In many cases, in my experience as a coach, chronic stress is a result of internal delay, denial, or disobedience. Let me tell y'all a few stories. So, several years ago, I had a client who was bold enough to share that they had been struggling in their relationship. Now, this just wasn't any old relationship. This wasn't just any old marriage. This was a 50-year marriage. I had a client who admitted that they had never been bold enough to say out loud and admit to themselves that they were not happy in their 50-year marriage. They had kids. You can only imagine the ups and downs and all the things they've been through as a family. And it didn't feel right admitting that they were not happy in their 50-year marriage. I had another person many years ago who reached out to me and on Facebook in the DM, and she said, one of your previous clients introduced me to you many years ago, and I didn't really take her up on her information. And now here I am many years later. My weight has just gotten even more excessive. I've gained more weight. My health is even more out of control. And now I really need help. Then I have another friend, client, coach in my ecosystem. She often teaches about autoimmune conditions. And when she tells her story, she tells the story of how her autoimmune condition is often flared up or aggravated by stress. And she was working a job at the time that she had been in for decades, I think upwards of close to 20 years, if not more than 20 years, but very, very close to it. And she was a manager at this job. And so every time she would go into work and have to manage team and unexpected events and all the stuff that comes with being a manager, managing people in a fast-paced job, her autoimmune condition would flare up and she would be in agonizing pain because of the stress, right? And she stayed in that job, like I said, nearly 20 years before she finally got bold enough to leave. So why am I telling you guys this story about a 50-year marriage that someone was miserable in, about somebody who had been given an option to do something about their health, didn't take that option, and their health escalated many years later? Why am I telling you the story about someone who had a chronic health condition that was aggravated by stress and was in a very, very stressful job that caused their health condition to get even worse and to escalate? I'm telling you this because these stories are not uncommon. I can almost bet that you guys hear either yourself or someone you know in one of these stories. And I'm telling you this because these individuals are not outliers. They're not outliers. So today I want to talk to you guys about the true cause of chronic stress, which is long-term stress. I want you guys to understand the consequences of prolonging obedience. Good morning, YouTube. Good morning, Lachey. Hey there, Wanda. What's up, Michelle? I'm Coach Lisa. This is the Plant Protocol Podcast, our live recording every Monday at 10 a.m. EST. I am your coach specializing in optimizing your health so that you can eliminate chronic stress once and for all. It is my belief that we should not be managing anything that can be eliminated. And so one of the things that we have all been taught culturally, and I had too, and I took this stance as well once upon a time, was that management. We just got to manage our stress. I just got to get better at managing the stress. I just have to get better at knowing the tools that I need to use when I start feeling overwhelmed. I used to believe that as well. And so what I'd like to walk you guys through today is what happens when we only use stress management techniques, self-care days, breathing, yoga, meditation, wine, girl nights, all of these things. What happens when we only resort to stress management techniques in order to deal with our chronic stress? What y'all drinking on this morning? I have my decaffeinated tea. I'm doing a different flavor today, y'all. I got vanilla tea today in my Radical Obedience mug, which is quite apropos because we're talking about radical obedience today. Wanda says green matcha. Wanda, you always on the green matcha every week. That must be your favorite. What else y'all drinking today? But I have a vanilla decaffeinated tea by one of, I really like this tea brand, Harney and Sons. I've been drinking Harney and Sons for many years, and I really enjoy their tea. So I'm drinking Harney and Sons Vanilla Camoro is the brand today. And we're doing the 30-day vegan salt, oil, and sugar-free challenge right now inside of the plant protocol. So I'm not consuming any caffeine. So all of my tea is decaf. Okay, so let's get back on topic. So chronic stress, I just want to make sure we're all clear because I know some of you guys have been here for a while and you're here every week, but not all of you. And I want to make sure you understand that when I teach about stress, I'm not advocating for a 100% stress-free life. I am advocating for a 100% chronic stress-free life. So I want to make sure that you guys understand that stress is a natural part of life. It happens to all of us. The goal is not necessarily to be stress-free. The goal is to be free of chronic stress because not all stress is created equal. And acute stress is actually extremely healthy, but chronic stress kills. Chronic stress kills. So that's the kind of stress that we want to get in front of. That's the kind of stress that we want to combat. And we want to ensure that we're doing everything we can to stay chronic stress free. And so I started today's episode sharing that chronic stress isn't always due to external circumstances. Although that's the first thing we blame. We're like, this job, this man, this woman, my parents, my kids, I'm a caregiver now, that's hard. You know, these finances, this money, these bills, that's stressful. This health, this sickness, this condition, these medications, these doctor's appointments, these flare-ups, that's stressful, right? Trying to entrepreneurship, let's not even get started on that. Stressful. And so oftentimes when we're talking about the things that's overwhelming us, we almost always reference external circumstances. However, the reason stress management techniques are not working for you, the reason the meditation, the yoga, the journaling, the cocktails, the self-care days, the vacation, the mental health days, the reason that's not working for you is because stress gets stronger the longer you are disobedient. So let me give you even more doubt-in example. You guys, so I'm plant-based vegan. But when we do this 30-day vegan challenge, we do it twice a year to help people optimize their physical health so that they can combat chronic stress, right? Because you can't do much with brain fog, right? And low energy. So to combat chronic stress, we start with your physical health. So we do this challenge twice a year. And usually when we do this challenge, I almost never eat out. So when we're doing the 30-day challenge, I'm cooking a lot, right? I'm cooking a lot. I'm buying a lot of groceries. And of course, that includes a lot of fruits and vegetables, right? And so I buy a lot of fruits and vegetables. And you guys probably all know that one of the things that comes with buying a ton of fruits and vegetables are fruit flies. And they're so irritating. They're so irritating, right? And so when we're doing this challenge, because I'm doing a lot of more cooking, there's a more prevalence of fruit flies and they irritate the heck out of me. And listen, I have been searching all over the internet, Google searches, how do you get rid of these fruit flies? And I was trying everything. People are like, put vinegar and dish detergent in a little capsule and they'll land in there and it'll capture them, cover it up. Use wine. Somebody else said, pour Drano down your sink and then follow it up with boiling hot water. That'll take care of your gnats. Y'all, I was trying everything. And then finally, I saw this insect thing that you plug into the wall, right? And you plug it into the wall, and they have all type of insect capturing tools that you can buy. However, I don't like the kind where you can see the bugs. I don't want to see the dead bugs. So I need something that's a little more inconspicuous. And so I found this one that you plug into the wall, and it's meant to capture the bugs, but you can't see them, right? So it's not gross and disgusting. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna give this a try. Like, take my money, right? And I bought this thing. I bought two of them to plug in, one upstairs, one downstairs in my home. And I bought it, and it seemed like it was working. It was working, y'all. So I'm cooking, I'm buying fruits and vegetables, and you got bananas on the counter. I'm making my smoothies, I'm slicing up avocados, and it used to be that when I'm making my smoothie in the morning, or I'm making a stir fry, if I'm cutting up vegetables and fruit, I would have at least one fruit fly that's trying to compete with me in the kitchen. But when I bought this bug pluggy any thingy, I plugged it in, and all of a sudden, it was no more fruit flies. I was like, finally, something that works, right? Finally, something that works. Then guess what happened, y'all? No joke. About a week, maybe 2 weeks after buying this thing, all of a sudden, it was not nearly as many fruit flies, but there were still like one or two. And let me tell you something about these one or two. I swear on everything I love. I work out about 5 or 6 days a week. I know what muscles look like. I swear on everything I love. These new fruit flies have biceps. I swear. Don't challenge me in the chat. On everything I love, these new fruit flies, they had hamstrings, they had glutes that was sitting up high, they had calf muscles that was popping out through their jeans. Y'all, I promise you, I promise you, I bought this bug contraption. I plugged it in. It worked for about 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden, I was in the kitchen one day. I'm about to cook up some goodness, about to blend me a good smoothie, and a fruit fly came flying past my face. And I swear it looked me dead in my eye and said, try something. I swear, I swear, y'all know I don't be lying. Y'all know I don't be lying. This fruit fly looked me dead in my eye and said, try something. Now, what does this have to do with chronic stress? What I'm trying to tell you is, when you only manage a situation, it doesn't necessarily get completely rid of it. The thing just comes back stronger. If you don't activate radical obedience to eliminate your chronic stress, and you keep believing that yoga and deep breathing and journaling and self-care days and girls' nights out is going to be enough to manage your miserable relationship, it's going to be enough to manage a career where you're unfulfilled, if you keep believing those things are going to be enough to manage your health conditions that are causing you overwhelm, you're wrong. That's only gonna make the stress get stronger. That's it. Some kind of way, these bugs took about 2 weeks to study the contraption that I had bought. They figured out a workaround. They went back in the lab, started lifting, started taking creatine, started taking protein powder, and these fruit flies came back with abs, biceps, and hamstrings. And I'm telling you, your stress is doing the same thing. You ever wonder why there was a time when a good prayer, a good worship, a good meditation, a good workout used to do the trick, but now, a year later, 2 years later, 5 years later, for some reason that meditation ain't hitting like it used to. For some reason, those off days ain't hitting like it used to. It used to be you could take those things, and you can make your way through another 2 weeks of work, and pretty much manage the situation. You ever wonder why it's not getting easier? Although you're practicing, you're activating all of the tools that you've been taught to manage stress. I'm telling you, because stress management is only reserved for acute stress. Chronic stress requires radical obedience. Now, if this is your first time here, let me explain what radical obedience is. If you haven't been here in a while, let me explain what radical obedience is. Radical obedience, I define as doing what you're being called to do despite the presence of fear and uncertainty. That job is not calling you to simply meditate every morning. That job is not calling you to simply get your workout in every day. That marriage is not calling you to have you a glass of wine every night to decompress. It's calling you to make a tough decision. It's asking you to be decisive. It is asking you to sit down and map out a plan. Like, your finances are not calling you to another yoga class. It's calling you to sit down and face your debt. The disobedience is making your stress stronger. That's what it is. Stress gets stronger, not because it has human muscles, but because the consequences of disobedience is escalation. The consequence, somebody put this in the chat. This is your major takeaway. The consequence for disobedience is escalation. That's why Monday mornings keep getting harder and harder. That's why every week in that relationship gets harder and harder. That's why every week in that body where you are overweight, where your blood pressure is erratic, where your blood sugar is out of control, that's why it keeps getting harder and harder, because the consequence for disobedience is escalation. Let me break down escalation for you. So when something begins to erode, when something begins to get, you're starting to realize, you're starting to see red flags. Like, you got the job you prayed for, but then 5, 10, 20, 30 years into it, it's no longer fulfilling. Like, you got into the relationship and got the marriage, but 5, 10, 30, 40, 50 years into it, the relationship has eroded. Like, the red flags have been showing up. But here's what consequences look like, consequences of disobedience. First red flag is tolerable. Things are tolerable. You know what? I done gained a little weight. You know what, these my work is starting to get dull a little bit, a little stale. It don't makes me happy, but whatever, it's tolerable. I've been here a while, it's paying the bills, or I can still fit into my jeans. They're a little tighter, but it's tolerable, right? Then time continues to go on, and you just implemented a stress management technique. And so you didn't change anything, you just introduced a breathing regimen, right? And so the second red flag pops up, and I can't button up the jeans no more. Every time I go into this job, the first person that talks to me, I'm ready to pop off. I at least used to be able to make it through the morning. Every time my spouse breathes, I'm willing to commit manslaughter. Right? That's the second red flag. Okay, now we've escalated to not that bad. It's still not that bad. It went from one red flag, tolerable, second red flag, not that bad. And so what we do, we introduce another stress management technique. Okay, I'm not just about to pray. I'm not just about to meditate. I need to do something deeper. Okay, let me start getting regular massages now. I gotta pay for people. Let me get some massages now. Let me go start getting facials. Let me start doing staycations by myself 2 days instead of one. Let me get out the house more, right? We introduce another stress management technique. Now the third red flag done popped up. We done went from tolerable to not that bad to unbearable. That is the consequences of disobedience. The consequence of disobedience is escalation. It escalates from tolerable to not that bad to unbearable. Escalation is the thing you should be afraid of. Stop thinking that I can avoid doing hard things. Stop thinking that I can avoid making tough decisions. Stop thinking I can avoid having difficult conversations, and start believing that if I don't, this thing could escalate to a point of unbearable. And unbearable is one of the most dangerous places to be, because when things are unbearable, we are more susceptible to making emotional decisions. And emotional decisions looks like lashing out, because you can't take it anymore. Emotional decisions looks like eating or drinking yourself to self-destruction because you can't take it anymore. You can't cope with reality anymore. Escalation, unbearable, looks like going to the doctor and getting a diagnosis where they say, unfortunately, this has spread so much. This has gotten so bad. We can't get rid of all of it, but most we can do is make you comfortable while you live with it. What escalation looks like. That's the consequences of disobedience. You got the red flag, you got another red flag, you got a third red flag, and yet and still, you were so scared to make a bolder decision that you decided to manage a situation that should have never been managed. It should have been eliminated. It should have been eliminated, right? So you guys know, antibiotics, right? You guys know antibiotics. And did you guys know, I'm sure this is pretty fairly common knowledge, but did you guys know that today the average person has such a resistance to antibiotics that if you get an infection or get, diagnosed with something, that today, if you are prescribed antibiotics, you normally have to get prescribed antibiotics at a much higher dosage than you would have years ago because of the resistance that many of us has built up to antibiotics. So you get some type of infection, you get some type of illness, and normally you could go to urgent care, you can go to the doctor, whatever. They'll do a test. Yep, you got this infection. Let me write you a script for some antibiotics. Did you know the dosage today is much higher than what it used to be because we have built up a resistance to it? And the reason we've built up a resistance to antibiotics is not because we've been taking it repeatedly, not intentionally. We've been getting so many antibiotics through the food that we're eating that our body has built up a resistance to the antibiotics. So now if we get sick with an infection, we need a much higher dosage because we didn't know that we were microdosing antibiotics every time we ate food, especially animals, right? Because they inject the animals with antibiotics to keep them from getting sick so they can kill them and sell them at the grocery store. And so because the animals have so many antibiotics in them, when we eat the animal, when we eat the animal, we get the antibiotics. And so we're steadily producing this bacteria in our gut that essentially builds up a resistance to antibiotics. So when we get sick and we need antibiotics for real, it takes so much more. It takes so much more for it to be effective. Did you guys know this about antibiotics? Why am I telling you this? This is called resistant antibiotics. And this is really important. I want to read something to you guys, and I'm going to tell you what this has to do with stress so you can understand. But there's something called resistant bacteria, right? And what that means is resistant bacteria can cause infections that are difficult and sometimes impossible to treat. This can lead to longer illnesses, more doctor visits, higher healthcare costs, and even death. So if you have resistant bacteria in your system because you've been microdosing antibiotics for years, unknowingly, not on purpose, you can end up with infections that are much more difficult to treat because of the resistant bacteria. Just like those fruit flies that came back with biceps. Every time you got an infection now, the antibiotics don't work as good as it used to. This is similar to disobedience. The consequences of disobedience grows more and more intense over time, which means we as humans who are trying to manage a condition, we build up resistance to meditation, yoga, the workouts, the prayer, the journaling, the breathing techniques. The stress builds up a resistance to it because the solution was never those things. Those things are super useful for acute stress. They're also super useful when you are executing your exit strategy from chronic stress. But imagine you're only using stress management techniques but you don't have an exit strategy. So your whole play is to just meditate your way through 20 more years of a job you hate. Your whole play is just to journal and take vacation and self-care days for another 20 years in that relationship. Those techniques are meant to be used as you are executing the harder thing. They were not meant to be the source of living in an undesirable circumstance. Your problems have become immune to stress management. Your problems have become immune to stress management. Your problems are resistant bacteria. They just don't work as good. It just doesn't work as good. And you want to know why, even after taking an antibiotic, the goal is that the antibiotic gets rid of the infection. So your goal is that the stress management gets rid of the stress, right? However, even after the antibiotic has done what it's supposed to do, the goal is not to go back to the circumstance that caused the infection. Am I right? There's a protocol that you ideally will follow after taking the antibiotic to ensure you don't get reinfected. Same thing with stress. Ideally, there's a protocol that you will follow after using stress management techniques to get relief from the circumstance. Now, there should be a protocol that you follow to ensure things don't continue to escalate. There's a protocol that you should follow to ensure things don't continue to escalate. When we do our 30-day vegan challenge, right? So we take everyone off of meat, eggs, dairy, seafood, salt, oil, and sugar for 30 days. And when I'm teaching during the challenge, I tell our students, please, for goodness sakes, I beg of you, at the end of this challenge, do not detox to retox. Do not detox to retox. Don't do all of this hard work of taking all of these inflammatory foods, disease-promoting things out of your body and out of your system and out of your diet just to dump them all back in at the end of this 30 days, right? I tell them, don't detox to retox, don't detox to retox. And that's what I'm telling you. That's what I'm telling you. Don't do this beautiful staycation where you unplug and decompress and go inward and you feel amazing just to go back to the chaos with no exit strategy. Don't detox to retox, guys. All stress management is detox, but then you go right back home to the toxicity. You go right back into work, into the toxicity. You go right back in your diet, eating foolishness into the toxicity with no exit strategy. We gotta do better. Stress is killing us. It is. And you know why I started focusing on stress is because I've been teaching health for so long, and I've been teaching individuals how to get rid of high blood pressure, get rid of high cholesterol, get rid of excess weight, combat heart disease, combat autoimmune conditions, combat gastrointestinal issues, skin issues, fertility issues for years. But a pattern that I notice is that no matter how good you teach somebody to eat, no matter how much you instill the principles of exercise and plants and water and hydration into somebody, if they have a circumstance in their life that's causing them stress, maintaining those healthy habits that you just spent months or years teaching them is extremely harder, and the probability that they will maintain them is extremely low when they are living in a circumstance where they're miserable, they're unfulfilled, they're unloved, they don't have self-worth, they're unhappy, they don't feel purposeful, they don't feel meaningful, right? They are settling somewhere. And so I was like, shucks, we got to address this so that becomes sustainable. I don't want to help you lose 40, 50 pounds. I don't want to help you get off the blood pressure medication and the statins if all you're going to do is go back to the condition that caused it, right? So the word that I want you to take away from today is adaptation. Adaptation. I want you to know that your stress and your problems have adapted. They have adapted to your chronic stress techniques because obedience is the protocol. Radical obedience is the protocol that you should be following to eliminate the stress. It is not temporary stress management techniques. It is not temporary stress management techniques. So that is what I need you guys to understand. Here's the final takeaway. Here's the final takeaway. If there was something I wanted you to write down and make note of, it is this: radical obedience, i.e., doing what you're being called to do despite the presence of fear and uncertainty. Radical obedience is to stress what diet and exercise is to obesity. Radical obedience is to stress what diet and exercise is to high blood pressure. Radical obedience is to stress what diet and exercise is to high cholesterol. Does that make sense? That's what I want you guys to understand. It's time to get radically obedient. Radical equals complete. Obedient equals surrender. Completely surrender. Don't run from your debt anymore. Don't run and avoid difficult conversations in your relationships anymore. Have that tough conversation with your parents. Have that tough conversation with your spouse. Have that difficult conversation with your children. Don't run away from conflict. Don't run away from confrontation. Stop running away from your purpose. Stop thinking that the job is safer than doing what God told you to do. You can do both. You can still very much work your 9 to 5 while you're working your 5 to 9, but to just be in the 9 to 5, knowing this isn't the end game, knowing this isn't what you were all called to do, and not doing anything about the assignment that you've been given is disobedience. And the consequence of disobedience is escalation. It's not going to get easier. It's just going to get harder, because guess what? This is what really blew my mind. Guess what? Things don't just, like, when you don't do anything about circumstances in your life that are making you miserable, they don't just stay the same. Like, you can get to a point of no return. There's a such thing as a point of no return. There's a such thing as this has went so far so long that you're not going to completely come back from this. That's what we should be afraid of more than launching a business and telling people about it. You mean to tell me you're more afraid of creating content and turning a camera and a microphone on than you are of the consequences of disobedience? Priorities are all messed up. Does that make sense, everybody? So that's the goal. Complete surrender. Complete surrender. Don't do all the things. Don't do all the things to feel better and get relief from your stress and then just go back and retox. Put an exit strategy together, put an enter strategy together, put an engagement strategy together. If you listen to the Plant Protocol podcast, we did a whole series on stress. And I taught in those episodes that to exit from chronic stress, you either need an exit strategy, an enter strategy, and or an engagement strategy. And most of us need all three. Okay, so you need an exit strategy, for example, to get out of the 9 to 5. You need an enter strategy if entrepreneurship is your goal, to get into entrepreneurship. And then you need an engagement strategy to get into community, into an ecosystem for people who can support you on exiting and entering. Right. And so those strategies are what you must use. It's not going to be enough to manage something that was meant to be eliminated. That's all I have for you guys today. Let me hear your takeaways, because y'all know the fee for free. Tell me, was this helpful today? What did you hear that was meant for you today? Let me hear it. Let me hear it. And if you got questions, I'm here for that too. Drop them in the chat, y'all. If y'all got questions, drop them in the chat. But what was your takeaway from today? Listen, next week, I'm excited. Make sure you're here. I'll be joined by somebody in our audience who has decided to let me coach them live. Let me coach them live. And so next week, I'll be joined with a guest. You guys seem to have been enjoying our Coach Me Live series. And so I'd like to invite you guys up. Come on YouTube with me and explain your challenge to me and let me coach you live. And so next Monday on the 21st, we'll be back here. I'll be coaching someone live. And I think you guys are going to enjoy this episode. She's having some health challenges, some emotional eating stuff. And so we're going to talk through it together. Thank you for dropping your takeaways in the chat, y'all. Stacy says disobedience leads to escalation. It does. It's so crazy. Stuff don't stay the same. It can get worse. Ain't that crazy? Like, when you gain that first 5 pounds, that first red flag, it usually don't stay there. You ever look up a year later and that 5 done turned into 20? Amen. Okay. Wanda says radical obedience because that's my struggle. Yes. Radical, complete surrender. Complete surrender. You have to. Malika says, don't detox to retox. Yes, absolutely. Right. So don't do all the things to feel better just to go back to the circumstance that made you feel bad. It's just like, that doesn't make any sense. And arguably that makes things even worse. You want to know why? Because you done got a taste of what it feels like to feel better. Sometimes you can't miss what you never had, but imagine doing the hard work to feel better. Shout out to the 30-day vegan challenge. Imagine doing the hard work to feel better just to on day 31 and on day 32 to start pouring all that foolishness back in your body. And it usually hurts 10 times more because you've got a taste of what it's like to feel good. Okay, so be very careful, right? I love it here. Okay, guys, this has been amazing. For our BS segment today, I want to invite you to ask questions. So at the end of these episodes, I also love to do a short BS business strategy segment. So if you have questions that you want answered about business, about entrepreneurship, about getting started, drop them in the chat. And I'm happy to talk on them or answer one of your questions. If there's no questions, we all good. But if you have some questions for our business strategy segment today, I would love to hear it. I've been in business for 10 years. I run a coaching company and I have a speaking career full time. We coach primarily in the health space and in the business space. Personal development coaching, health coaching, and business coaching has been kind of our 3 linchpins for the past decade. I love this work. I absolutely love this work. And I learn new stuff about it and myself every day. Like entrepreneurship is one of those things that will challenge you beyond comparison because wherever you go, there you are. And I think one of the things that I'm most proud of that used to bother me is that, when I teach business, I didn't know that it would be for most people more of a personal development program than a business program. So what I mean by that is, and when we teach business, we have a year-long program where we help individuals launch their coaching businesses. And one of the most common pieces of feedback we get in the program is how much the experience is a personal development experience for them more than anything. So many limiting beliefs that they didn't know they had about themselves. So many invitations to heal from stuff that they didn't know they still needed to heal from or that they didn't even know was there. I've heard that over and over again in issues when it comes to perfectionism, issues when it comes to insecurities, issues when it comes to self-doubt, issues when it comes to I'm not enough, right? So that like that self-worth, I'm not good enough stuff. All of that stuff comes up when you when you go out and work for yourself, when you make the decision to work for yourself. And everybody is not meant to be an entrepreneur. And that was a hard realization for me, right? I had to realize, I used to just think like everybody can do it. You just need a good strategy. I got the strategy for you. You just need a good system. We got the systems for you. But the truth of the matter is, everyone's not cut out for it. And that's okay. And I never thought that everybody should be, but I used to think everybody could be. I really did. I really used to try and believe in people. Like I really thought like anybody can do this. You just have to have a system and blah, blah, blah. And it's just not true. Like it's not true. This is like leadership at a whole nother level, right? Like all of the decisions are your responsibilities. All of the failures, all of the consequences that comes with your decisions are your responsibility. You're responsible for leading people. You're responsible for the vision. You are responsible for so much when you decide to work for yourself. And I don't think everybody can handle that. And not only that, not everybody wants to, and that's okay. Like, I don't put entrepreneurship on a pedestal. I don't try and, make it, glorify it so that people think that everybody should be gunning to run their own business. You shouldn't be. You definitely should not be. And it's okay if you don't want to. And sometimes it requires you trying to realize that you shouldn't be. And I had to learn that, like, okay, they needed to try it to see that they're not cut out for it. And that's okay. Because it's not the easiest thing in the world, bar none. Right. And so what you want to make sure of is that whatever you decide to do, however you decide to contribute to society, is something that you genuinely want to do, because self-actualization can happen in any role. Self-actualization can happen in any role. Self-actualization means your gifts and your talents are being used up in the best way possible, meaning you are your most meaningful and purposeful and most aligned self when you're self-actualized. And that can happen at a 9 to 5. Self-actualization can happen working for yourself or working for someone else. There's no right or wrong path. But I'm huge on making sure people know and experience and are exposed to what it takes, right? What it takes. And entrepreneurship takes a lot. And so I'm hoping those of you who are doing it are recognizing that. And I hope those of you who are considering it are keenly aware of that. Right. So I don't see any business questions come in. So I just wanted to share that tad bit with you guys today. Listen, we'll be back here next Monday, same time, 10 a.m. EST. And again, next week, I'll be joined by someone who is going to allow me to coach them live. She wrote in about some challenges she was having in her health. And they were so good because they're very, very common. There's challenges that I've heard from many of you in our ecosystem. And so I'm super, super excited to talk to her next week. And I'm very, 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 very proud of her willingness to be transparent. And so if any of you are interested in allowing us to coach you live, we would absolutely love to have you. Let me drop the link in the chat. If you're like, yep, Lisa, I would love to have a complimentary coaching session. I never thought you would ask. I would love for you to be bold enough to come up and let us coach you live. So let me drop the link for Coach Me Live right here in the chat for you guys. And for anybody, it's a short application. You just put in your questions, your comments, and then we get you all set up. And so for anybody who is interested in that, here's the link to get coached live by yours truly. So you can drop that link. You can click that link. I just dropped it in the chat for you guys. And this can be about health challenges. We specialize in taking a holistic approach using plant-based nutrition to impact chronic lifestyle diseases, kidney failure, fatty liver disease, gastrointestinal issues, autoimmune conditions, skin issues, weight, blood pressure, heart disease. Feel free to ask about protocols to help you with that stuff. Or if you want to talk about stress, that's my jam. I would love to help you figure out which direction you should be moving for your exit strategy, your enter strategy, or your engagement strategy. So that link to allow me to coach you live is in the chat. All right. That's it for me, guys. Until next Monday, I'll see you back here, same time. Bye, y'all.